everybody. It's Modern Native, but I'm having some technical difficulties, so give me a second. But today, I wanted to talk to you about something that was really important to me. Something that's been coming to mind a lot because I've been seeing it on the news, just like everybody else has. Sorry, I'm a little late. I was having some technical difficulties, and then trying to get it started, I was having some issues. How's it going, Bud Files? Trying this a different way. I don't know. It's 5 minutes. That's my bad. Sorry about that, everybody. But, so today, I wanted to talk to you guys about something I've been seeing in the news that's kind of struck home with me and that I find very important. And I'm happy it's finally getting some light. So I was having technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on. I need a new phone. My phone's all screwed up. How's it going, Swamp Rat? So this one is titled Men in Abusive Relationships. And it's not what you think. Been watching the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard news story. Been following along with that pretty closely, and the similarities between our stories is incredible. But I also noticed Will and Jada Smith. Now, I can't really say a whole lot about that, but that whole situation just looked very controlling and manipulative. But either which way, it just kind of alludes to another point. But following the story, until it happened to someone big and someone popular, when people would talk about men in abusive relationships, it was always men being the abusers. It was always the men's fault. It was always the men who are terrible and they're pieces of shit. And disclaimer, yet granted, I agree. There's a large percentage of domestic violence cases that are perpetrated by men. Those are the ones that are mostly reported. So I disclaimer, I'm not discrediting anyone's domestic violence or survival story or anything else. I'm simply sharing a side that hasn't come to light until recently. And that's something I'm going to get into, Swamp Rat. It's never just physical. There's always emotional, and God, on the screen it's so hard for me to see my crap on here. But oh well. The public opinion always was, men can't be abused. They're men. They're strong. They're they can't be abused by a woman. A woman is so much smaller and weaker than that, and that's just not, that can't happen. But that's not the case. Growing up, at least my generation before me, and people with traditional upbringings, men are raised not to hit women, not to lay their hands on them, because that's wrong. But they never say anything about, what can you do if a woman is beating on you? Oh, just leave. It's not always the option. Just like for women in abusive situations, it's not always an option to leave. Hey, Laura, how's it going? So, that puts men in a predicament where if they, if they defend themselves, they're abusers. Because instantly, the second they protect themselves, the woman can turn around and charge them with assault. But if a man tries to charge them with assault, it's not going to work. 90% of the time, unless she's totally psycho and actually came at him with a weapon, she could prove it, and he could prove it. So it's like, it's really difficult for a man to get himself help in that kind of situation, because most of the time people don't believe you, and even if they do, they kind of laugh at it because what, your girlfriend slapping you, oh, big whoop, or sometimes they'll just be like, well, slap her back, because that's gonna work. And it's and they try to argue, well, it can't hurt, can it? How can a woman hurt a man? Because you're tougher than them. You deal with it. It's not that big a deal. You've been in fights all the time. There's a difference though, because it's like being put in a situation where you can't defend yourself, so you're trapped and you have to take it, because the only things that you can do, you're not allowed to. So it's that's the public opinion, at least until recently. Exactly, Swamp Rat. And we're taught not to seek help because it's not manly. To be seen like you are being abused is not manly. It couldn't happen to a man. So if you go to it, you're taught not to seek that help because, well, you're tough. Deal with it yourself. Man up. Fucking hate that phrase. Sorry, but there, and like Swamp Rat was mentioning earlier, there are different types of abuse, and it looks different than it does for a woman, because a woman, when she's in an abusive situation, she could be getting pushed around, she could be getting smacked, she could be getting punched. That's physical abuse. But when it comes to the psychological and emotional abuse, usually when a woman is a victim of that, it's body image, uh, their sexual proficiency or prowess, or how promiscuous they are with their man, or if they're excessively flirtatious, even if they're not, the jealousy thing, controlling, manipulation to make them feel less. But some also do the cross manipulation. They'll put them up on a pedestal constantly, so that way the second they do something, they'll cut it. So it's the build up, cut them down, build up, cut them down. It makes them dependent on keeping them happy. So that's different forms that a woman, what's going on, Sunfish for Fish? That's different forms that a woman is subject to that kind of abuse, but it looks different when it's a man being the victim. It can be his substance use, weed, alcohol, things like that, even just relatively innocent things like that, or cigarettes. Now, yeah, people have the opinion that, you shouldn't do those things in excess, but there are controlling women who are manipulative and abusive in the point that anything that he likes to do, anything that gives him that little bit of release or that little bit of separation, can't have it. It's not good. I don't want you to do it. And so you start feeling shameful for the things that you enjoy. And it can go to the point as, looking at women, even just incidentally passing them by. That can be grounds for an argument, and all of this is setting the stage for manipulation to make them seem so emotionally fragile based on what you're doing. It's a reverse manipulation. It's making them seem so fragile and so dependent on you doing everything perfectly that when you screw up, you hurt them so bad that you're a piece of shit. Because it's being hammered into you that what you're doing is wrong, that you're a piece of shit, and that you shouldn't be doing that because I say so. Sorry, the fire kicked up. I didn't want the phone to get hot. And that's just terrible. It's a terrible way to live. It's a terrible way to feel like you're walking on eggshells, but any one of those eggshells could be a freaking landmine. So they're very similar, but they look different. Oh, I think I missed somebody. It's really hard for me to read my chat. And yes, I'm full-time camping. I'm trying to keep up with it, but I literally can only see one message at a time. That's why I put slow mode on. But yeah, people get into really. A woman says, same thing. A woman says when she gets asked that question. He was good at the beginning. He wasn't like that at first. And it's true, because if an abusive, controlling, manipulative, narcissistic person who is so toxic, if they were like that from the start, they would never have a long-term relationship. So word would get out very fast that they were a bad person. So they wouldn't be able to snag someone. It's all about the lead-in. They act good, they act nice, they do whatever you want. And then they slowly chip away and they start taking things and they start taking liberties. They start putting in ultimatums and limitations of things that are expected. Then they start having extravagant expectations, and it builds and builds and builds until it's justifiable. That let me think of a really good specific example that's fucking stupid, but it's not something you can make up because it's so fucking stupid. But I have so many of them. I want to pick a good one here. Drawing a blank. I hate when that happens. Made scrambled eggs and fried eggs because I like scrambled eggs, but she liked fried eggs. It's the only way she ate them, but she had to have hot sauce on them. Well, we were super broke, $250 a month, and sorry, $250. Yeah, it was $50 a week. So it was a shitty situation. It was bad. We were homeless out in Washington. Well, before we were homeless, just after and before, but whatever. And this is my ex. She had to have eggs that were fried with hot sauce on them. And I forgot hot sauce one time, but I didn't forget it. I forgot to tell her that we didn't have hot sauce and we had ran out and we didn't have the money to go get some because we had ran out the other day, but we didn't have eggs the day before. So I bring the eggs in and it was an instant blow up. Where the fuck is my goddamn hot sauce? And then it escalated from there. Talking about how I never do things right, that I don't think about her, that I'm such an asshole. I didn't even get the chance to get out the fact that we didn't have hot sauce for me to put on there. And I get her mud like I was a piece of shit. So it's like that becomes normal because they build up to that. So, and while we're breaking into that, his story, like, yeah, pretty sure that he didn't want to talk about the fact that he did. The one thing it seemed like he was being kind of deceptive about. He wanted to leave that out. He didn't want to really admit. some of the drugs he was doing at certain times because he was trying to be sober. And in his mind, I'm sure it made him feel weak that because he was trying to be sober, that he broke. He broke his sobriety and used. So that's where I feel like that comes from. But 95% of his testimony, you can feel in your heart, is honest and true, follows the facts and the evidence, and is corroborated. But beyond anything else, just hearing that man talk about his experience, you can feel that shame and that anger that he has towards himself over what was done to him, and he had let himself get that way. You can tell as soon as he says it. He says he was hiding. You hid because you were scared, because you didn't want it to escalate and go further, because you control to de-escalate it, because she was on a string and she was going to go for it. I'm sure there's things that he did that didn't help it. Just like in my own situation, there was things that I did. Just like in my own situation, there was things that I did that didn't help the situation. Because you get tired. It's stressful, and there's a lot of anxiety. Constantly thinking about what you're going to say, expecting how they're going to react. How should you be when they say what they're going to say? Because you don't want to react the wrong way and get them upset. And it is a spiral. Every decision is scary. Even just suggesting things for dinner starts getting, well, I don't know if she's going to be upset because I suggested that. And it gets stupid. Like, why should you be worried about someone being mad because you suggested something for dinner that you can make in your own home? So it makes no sense, but that's the kind of frame of mind you end up getting into at certain points. Because if you listen to the way he talks about being prepared ahead of time, having extra rooms and extra bathrooms, making sure they had an extra motel or hotel room. And, that was a lot of forethought and preparation because he knew what to expect. And when you get berated like that on a constant basis, yeah, there's going to be times where you snap because you can't deal with it anymore because you've been beaten down so far that you can't handle it. I mean, you see it in interrogation techniques, in war, POWs, in prisons, in hospitalization, patients that are hospitalized for an extended period of time. You see it in all of them. It's an overall sense of confinement that literally drives you insane. It makes it harder for you to rationalize things, so you start rationalizing things that aren't rational. So you end up accepting those lies that you know are lies and they're blatant. And you just end up accepting those as truth because it's going to get pounded into your skull anyway. So you might as well just accept it now. It's what your subconscious is saying, but your mind is just accepting it as truth and fact. So a couple of the other things that, was said in there is if you watch their testimonies from their deposition to now, during their depositions, they talk Johnny's mannerisms and experience and expressions are almost identical because some people have been like, remember that the story he's telling is false. Everything stays consistent. His mannerisms, his body language, and everything else. It's only when he gets overly ashamed, agitated, or he shrinks and he kind of shirks down at some points, and you can see he's going back to that time, and he's already trying to get into that defensive posture to defend his face, to protect his chest. He's trying to protect himself for the onslaught that's not coming because he won. So you can see that long-term scarring where he's having trouble still processing in the long term. Like, this has been years and he's still like borderline PTSD, having flashbacks from it. But so that's a handful of things that I've observed, watching a lot of the trial, a lot of the deposition and people's reaction videos and different excerpts from it. And it's really sad, but I'm very happy that it's come out into the forefront in the public eye, because I want to share my story. It's something I've been wanting to share with everybody. It's something that I share with my friends and people close to me, but it's not something that I've shared on here. And it's going to be hard. I'm going to try not to get emotional. I may smoke in between. And if it's not a cigarette, it's just, dabs. It's nothing freaky, so don't worry about it. I'm gonna stay honest. I'm going to stay open and share it factually. I'm gonna try not to put an emotional slant on it. I'm gonna try not to make it jaded, because I've tried to move past my anger, but I'm just gonna try to lay out the facts and share that with you guys. I don't know if anybody's even still hanging out with me right now. Quick half-hour roll call check-in before I start my story. I hope you guys are interested. Hope you guys stick around. This is a very important emotional story that is something I haven't shared openly. I'm going to just simply start at the beginning and go through. Thanks, all. Her name was Becca. She was my ex. People that know me personally will know her. But her name was Becca. So that'll be probably a little bit easier. It's my ex. I'm going to start at the beginning. We met come on. I don't think I'm seeing all the chat. Okay, so there. So yeah, I think I need to do a quick dab and light a cigarette before I start this. So I'm gonna do a little bit of backstory. My mom did raise me not to hit women, not to hit girls, and it backfired on me a lot when I was young. My sisters were aggressive and pretty much abusive. My one sister made a habit of, whenever she was upset with me, kicking me in the genitals, because it was fun for her to see me drop, I guess. So it actually deformed from her kicking me with a 6-inch high heel that she specifically went and put on just to kick me with. But I also got bullied and beat up in school a lot, especially by the girls, because a lot of them knew how I was. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't hit them. I wouldn't push them. So over the years, I got punished for being the good guy that I was taught to be. That it was wrong no matter what. I couldn't defend myself because I could hurt them, then I'd be in trouble. So, growing up like that, it was hard, But after a while, because I was bullied by everybody, they had to meet me first. Even if I didn't know them. So that's how I was raised. That's how I grew up. So I mean, there was a couple of girls beat the brakes off me. This one girl followed me all the way home, kicking me, slapping me, throwing things at me, punching me. I ended up with some black eyes, busted face, bruises, bruised ribs. I had a girl break a rib once. So I mean, I took my fair beating growing up, never doing anything about it. The one thing I did learn growing up was pressure points. It didn't leave a mark. Technically didn't hit anyone, but it would get people to leave me alone. So that was the one thing I would use, but that's something hard to be able to get to because all people got to do is keep their distance. That's why the one girl beat the brakes off me because she wouldn't let me get a pressure point in. I'd always get that one right there on the collar. It always makes your knee drop out, so it was always real easy. Hit that real quick, and then I can get some distance off of them. But sometimes I didn't have that opportunity, so I took the beating. But I had gone through some really tough situations. I'd lived in some really bad, rough, like needing to defend myself from other people on a regular basis, life situations. And, at any point in time, someone hit me, I had to be ready to react and swing back at them. Because if not, I could get hurt. So that was a survival mechanism that I'd learned during that time in my life. And, because there was a lot of times where there's a lot of guys that just had it out for me for no fucking reason. But, I learned how to defend myself and protect myself, and I developed a set of reflexes. Now, after I got out of that situation, a couple of years down the line, I get a job at Walmart, and I meet Becca, and we start dating. Sort of dating. See, at the beginning, it was on again, off again. It said we weren't, but we were sleeping together, but we were only sleeping with each other. So, because we weren't dating, I was talking to other people. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't doing anything with anyone else, but I was talking to other people. And the one in particular that she even found, it was a bot. Those that instead of those talking, I always like to screw with them. So I was just screwing around, but she didn't care. And some point in the argument, I don't even remember, like, it just continued. It was just never ending. And in the middle of the argument, she pulls up and texts me, and it wasn't even a thought. It was a straight reflex. Like, the hand came up and connected, my hand came up and connected. It's a reflex because I wasn't used to getting hit, and if I got hit, I reacted. So she slapped me in the face, and I slapped her back, like, instant. And as soon as I did, I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I that was a reflex." Oh my God, you hit me! Did you realize you hit me first? Freaking out that I just slapped her, and I like pulled it as I realized what was happening. I pulled it, so I barely connected. And she slapped me. And it was a whole big back and forth. She was all upset with me for it. I'm trying to find a better place for this to get a decent signal. So it was a whole big back and forth about it, and I had to apologize through the roof, and I had to apologize and tell her I was sorry and it was my fault. But that right there set the precedent. That right there opened up the door and set the precedent that she did something. I simply reacted, and it was my fault. Never mind the fact that she hit me first. Through the manipulation, she was able to convince me that it was my fault. And that right there was the way every argument ended from that point on. She did something to me. It was my fault. I apologized. She didn't do nothing. And I think it's because we were planning on, it was like right after that, she wanted to start talking about planning on moving to Washington State and living with her family out there. So I moved in with my aunt. We moved in with my aunt and stayed there for a little bit. So I was with my family. She was the one on loose footing. So she was on her best behavior and she didn't do anything. She didn't cause arguments, nothing else. She didn't throw a fit. She was the best woman ever. Then we moved to Washington. And it very quickly stepped up. I had to start doing more. I had to remember I was relying on her. It was her family that was helping us. It was her grandma who gave us the car. It was her aunt we were living with. It was her dad that was helping us out. And then she got help to get her driver's license. And then I was like, well, when can we get mine? Her and her aunt were both like, well, when you get a job and you can get it. But they just got her hers. So that automatically put her in more control. She had the driver's license. She could drive around. She could do things. And every time I brought up the conversation later about, me making time to go down so I can get my license even after we were making money. Oh, well, we work together. You work with, you don't need to go anywhere without me, so you don't need a license. Because I can drive you wherever you need to go. Control. Now, because I was talking to that stupid bot once, didn't do anything with anybody in real life, didn't do anything any sort of way, didn't act any sort of way. Because that one time, she had a jealousy stick so far up her ass, she looked like a scarecrow. If we were walking through the store, and I'm just walking through the store, looking around. If a woman is in view, as my eyes go across, I was looking at her. I was checking her out. I was thinking about her. I must have been thinking about fucking her. And even that started simple, where she would just kind of get a little huffy if I accidentally did look in the direction of a woman for too long. Then I started being really careful and really avoided doing that. But she would get all huffy and pissy because somebody was in view. God forbid somebody came by looking scantily clad, looking like a skank, as she put it. All hell would break loose. I was a piece of shit because I was looking at them. I was thinking about that. I didn't even see them. There was one time in particular. What's going on, BS? How's it going? There was one time in particular, we were out in Washington. We were going through Walmart. We were going through the frozen cooler section. I'm looking at the coolers. Now, at this point, I have gotten into the habit that when I'm walking through the store, I look at my feet. I would look at my feet immediately in front of us and just scan the sides to know where I was in the store. And just look up at her, look at the wall, look at the aisle, look at her, look at the aisle. I just kept my head down because if I looked up, God forbid what the fuck was in view. So we were in the cooler section, and I'm in this habit, so I'm already looking down, and I knew I was by the cooler I needed, so I turned and I looked at the cooler. I opened up the door and I'm looking in the cooler. I'm in the goddamn cooler. Out of the corner of my eye, like far peripheral, like where the phone is right now, where the camera is. I see movement. I couldn't even tell you what the movement was. I just saw movement at the end of the aisle. You know how you do when you're looking at the shelves and you see movement. Huff and puff. And, oh my God, I can't believe that. Really? What? What? Don't even what me. You know. What? The aisle was empty. Like, I'm saying this in my head. The aisle was fucking empty. I was looking in the cooler. What? I don't know what you're upset about. I don't know what's wrong. What's the matter? Just don't even. Okay, fine. Did you get what you wanted? Are we good? I guess. So we leave. And as we're leaving the aisle, we're going towards checkout. Up ahead, 3 girls. Yes, 3 gorgeous girls in booty shorts. Like mid-20s, college, looking gorgeous, booty shorts. Yeah, if I was looking, I'd imagine she'd get upset. Most would. Until that moment, I didn't even know they existed at all. So I was like, oh, that. I didn't even fucking see. It was one of those times that this specific incident was like years down the line. It was like 3 years in. I was getting frustrated. So sometimes when it was totally ridiculous, I would kind of snap about it, but then I'd pay for it later because then that argument would build into what my story is mainly about. I'm sure throughout my videos, people have seen my teeth are pretty fucked up. I'm sure some people think I'm a drug addict, especially, you see me smoke weed, especially dabs, because it looks like hardcore drugs, but it's just weed and cigarettes. Here's the thing. My teeth were fine. My teeth were strong as fuck. Like, I did the gold coin test. Buddy had a gold coin. I always wanted to check it out. I did the gold coin test. I could strip cup fishing line. My teeth were strong. My teeth were healthy, and they were good. But as I said, abusive relationships, they progress. So as you go, things get worse and worse. The abuse gets more aggressive. So right after we left her aunt's, she would kind of get a little shovey. Well, actually, it kind of started at her aunt's. She shoved me hard in the chest one time at her aunt's. Didn't think nothing of it at the time, but then she started getting shovey, and there was times where she would smack me in the chest or punch my arms, and the arguments were just getting rougher and rougher, and she was picking things for no reason. She was blowing things out of proportion that made absolutely no sense. Like, at least a good third of our arguments, I didn't know what we were arguing about. I didn't know how it started. I didn't know what we were arguing about. And I still don't think the gold coin test, where you take a pure gold coin and you test if it's real because you can bite it and bend it or dent it a little bit because of how soft gold is. It can still hurt a lot of people's teeth, but my teeth were that strong. They were fine. But she was getting really aggressive like that, and during the arguments, she would really be up in my face. And then it got to the point where I got really frustrated. I got really frustrated with being berated and told I was a piece of shit, that I was gonna cheat on her, that, you know, everyone I looked at, I wanted to fuck. Everyone that was, existed, I wanted to sleep with. Even like women almost three times my age, she was being jealous of. And I'm like, oh my God, really? And it was, if I made food wrong, if I made the bed wrong, if I packed the bowl wrong, if I didn't smoke right, if I smiled too much at the bud tenders, which are like bartenders, but they work the weed stores to dispense weed. If I smiled too much at the girl behind the counter, I must have been flirting. I must have been doing something because I'd been in there by myself at least once. And it, I would start saying things like, she's just being a jealous bitch, or, you know, she's being ridiculous. I would hit her with facts about things that she would do that were absolutely ridiculous. And then she would accuse me of things that she was literally doing, which is another thing. I meant to get to that, but I'll circle back. It's something Johnny Depp and Amber Heard said. The incident with the vodka bottle. When he's up there on the stand, he's talking. He goes and he's talking about her throwing the bottle at him, and then she throws the other bottle at him, and it hits him in the finger and severs his finger and crushes his bone. Story makes sense, but then she talks about how he throws the bottle and he slams the bottle, but then she mentions how she has the bottle in her hand. So it's like she has Freudian slips the whole time, but a true like psychopathic, narcissist, manipulative person is smarter than that. Doesn't have Freudian slips and knows how to twist everything just right, so that way, as they're saying everything, they're absolving themselves and making you look like crap. So it took a lot for me to finally come up with things that she was doing, that she was accusing me of, or blaming on me, or the way she was treating me. I was so stressed and so bad that I had IBS as it was. But the IBS turned into like serious chronic IBD because I was under so much stress. The more stressed I was, the worse it got. To the point that I would spend half hour, 45 minutes to an hour and a half just trying to go to the bathroom because my stomach was so knotted up and so messed up. And I was down to 140 pounds. And I'm 5'10". And at my build, I'm supposed to be 175 minimum, 170 minimum. That's tight minimum. And I was 140 pounds. I was so sick. Like, I was sunken. You could up against my skin and tissues. And it was gross. Like, I grossed myself out looking like Skeletor. But I finally told her one time that she was making me sick. And she fakes a blackout. Yep. And I say fakes a blackout because when someone blacks out, they go limp. You go limp. You don't slowly kind of sit down and you're holding a bottle of water and then you slowly tilt it. You don't play it up. You fucking fall out and go limp. But back to my teeth. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Up until like she got shovey and she got swatty and she started kind of hitting me and punching me and shit. And then we got into arguments and she'd be right in my face. And I was expecting the shove. I was waiting for her to shove me. And I said something that she didn't like. It was just the truth. I just said it like it was because I was tired of dealing with it. And her eyes just go wide, and then she gets angry. She leans back and headbutts me right in the mouth. First time it happened, I couldn't believe it. Like, my eyes started to water. I froze and I looked at her. My lip was split because I was, the way my mouth was, my lips were together. So when she headbutt me, my teeth weren't together, but my lips were. So it pushed my mouth down and crunched my lips in between my teeth. I split my lips and I broke. This tooth. It's weird. It's the only one that still has the base. Or no, sorry. That gap right there. Forgot I ended up having to have that one removed because about a year later, many headbutts after, but a year later, that tooth got really infected and it swelled and put a lot of pressure in my jaw and in my skull. And I had to go to the dentist and get antibiotics and have a tooth pulled. Well, the base of it, what was left. But then that became the new trend. Every time I would talk to her, or I talked to her, I tried to talk to her and it turned into an argument, and then it would just escalate and escalate. And I'd try to de escalate it. No matter what I would try to say, she would just twist it and make it worse. And then she'd close the distance. And you never expect to wish that someone would punch you or shove you or kick you, goddammit. And it wasn't like I could just leave because it just made it worse. If I went and hid in the bathroom, like Johnny does, it's a natural instinct. Johnny talked about going and trying to stay in the bathroom for a while to get away from her. I didn't have that option all the time because that either made it worse or she'd follow me. And we lived with people. So I didn't want to bring our dirty laundry, through the house and have people see me being treated like shit and not doing anything about it. I like being the strong one. I like being the one people can depend on. But if you see someone being treated like that, you can't help but kind of feel like they're a little bit weak. And I didn't want that because I enjoyed being respected by the people I was around. And you don't get to run away. You don't get to leave. It just makes it worse. And so many times she'd headbutt me and I'd spit out teeth, just pieces. And days later, trying to eat something and a tooth just crumbles because it cracked. It broke, but didn't come out yet. Even to this day, just the other day, I was eating macaroni and cheese, and I have an infection in my jaw right now, and it hurts to chew. So I had mac and cheese, and I made it super soft, and I was taking it small spoonfuls at a time so I could just swallow it. I didn't have to chew it, didn't have to touch my teeth, nothing. But for some reason, I took a spoonful, spoon didn't touch my teeth. This tooth, the cap, just broke off. Felt the hard piece rolling around in my mouth, and I was like, every single one of my teeth in my head is broken or missing. All except for one, which broke from chewing on a pen. But I had gotten punched right there at the side of the jaw, like 2 weeks beforehand, and my tooth was hurting, so I was doing that like oral fixation thing when your mouth hurts, you kind of teeth on it. I was chewing on a pen, and I guess the way he punched me, it broke that one tooth, just the one, and broke that tooth. But other than that, I had no issues with my teeth. But every single one of my teeth are broken, and she made it seem like it was my fault because I made her mad because of what I said. Never mind things that she said to me. In an argument, you should never say things specifically just to hurt the other person. Never say anything that isn't true, for one. So I got headbutted in the mouth for 2.5 years. That's when the headbutting actually started and went on. And I never hit her, never touched her. Not until my mind broke. And like I said, I'm going to be factual and honest. I had these 3 front teeth. When I talk to you, I could smile. These ones were mostly fine. These ones were fine. I could talk to you in a professional manner because I was running my own business. I was running my own business out there for 5 years. So actually, I got headbutted for 3.5 years. So I was there for a year after. No, 2.5 sounds right, actually. That's about right. So I had those front teeth left. We were in the middle of an argument. I don't even remember what it was about. But it was one of those bad days where she was just ragging. She was going hard, and I had already spent 3 hours in the bathroom. I was nauseous. I was weak. Finally looked at her mid-screaming match just to be heard. Told her, I said, I'm tired of you making me fucking sick. You're going to kill me. And I couldn't help it. It came out. And instead of feeling guilty or taking responsibility, she leaned back and headbutted me. As I was trying to say, I can't do this. I can't. And my mouth was open. And she headbutted me. She knocked out 3 of those teeth and broke off another tooth. And it was stuck in the top of her goddamn head. She had an indentation and a bloody mark. I spit out the pieces into my hand that she had knocked into my mouth. And yeah, I snapped. I looked at the tooth sticking out of the top of her fucking head, looked at the teeth in my hand, and knew it was the only teeth I had left. And I snapped. I charged her and I picked her up by her throat and I carried her across the room, threw her into this big cushioned chair and pinned her by her throat. And I might have killed her. I wanted to. I squeezed her throat and looked her in the face, told her never again. You're never fucking headbutting me again. And I squeezed. I felt this like crackle under my hand and I let go. I bruised and like fractured her esophagus or larynx or whatever, however you want to put it. She could breathe fine. She was just sore. But I snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. That was so much up to that point that I'd taken and dealt with. The worst I tried to do is when she would start hitting me is I tried to grab her wrists and get her to cross arms and just kind of like hug her to get her to stop. And that's when she'd go for the backwards headbutt and headbutt me, or she'd drop down, claw my legs. I have scars up my legs and a couple of them down my arms from where she would claw me, where she would grab me and slash down my arms. The worst part was, in all of this, it was all in the same house. We lived with someone, but it was someone who was old school. So what happened behind closed doors stayed behind closed doors, and it wasn't any of her business. So there was one person who could have protected me. There was one person who could have helped me. But I was too ashamed to ask for help. And she was too traditional to offer it. The manipulation, the guilt trips, the dogging and control. It's got worse and worse from that point because I defended myself, so now she was scared to hit me. And because of the arguing and because she decided to involve the person that was there in our drama at the very end, we lost our place to live because she didn't want to deal with it. So we were homeless. And I was doing everything I could figure out how to keep things going to just survive. Well, trying not to die. And it got bad. And we ended up living in a camper. This guy's property. It's a coworker of mine. Well, he was my client's employee. I was independent of that company. But we stayed in his camper. And I have insomnia. Plus, when she's sleeping, that was the only time I'd have any peace. So I'd stay up late, just to try to have a little bit of peace. So I was with her 24/7, worked with her, lived with her. I couldn't even shower by myself. I wasn't allowed to. Yeah, I wasn't allowed to shower by myself. Oh yeah, and as a grown man, I wasn't allowed to masturbate either. That's cheating. Yeah, she considered it cheating. That's how bad the control got. I wasn't in control of my own body, my own eyes, nothing. I had no options, no control, no choice. The only time I had to myself was when I was taking a shit. That's because it was too gross for her, thankfully. And I needed privacy to be able to shit. At least that's what I said. And when she was sleeping. So while she was sleeping, I would game. Sometimes I would play my video game until I'd fall asleep, sitting there in front of the TV playing my video game. At home, at the house, that wasn't a problem because I had a PGE. It was like it's a TV inside of inside of a suitcase that you can put your system in, and then all you need to do is be able to plug it in. You can play. But we had an extension cord, so I could plug it in. It was sitting on the thing. So if I fell asleep playing at the house, I'd just fall asleep in bed because I'd had it on my lap. I just end up having to scoot it down or do something to avoid, kicking it off the bed. But in the camper, there wasn't room. And I had to climb up and over her to get tucked into the bed that was, at the end of the camper, the way campers are set up. So I sat at the dinette couch thing where you drop the table, turn it into a couch. I sat there playing my video game. I fell asleep. She got upset, like really upset. Because now, on top of everything, now I don't even want to sleep with her, apparently. Because I accidentally fell asleep playing video games. So I snapped. I said, no, you're right. I don't want to sleep with you. I don't want to have sex with you. I don't want to be with you. I don't want to be around you anymore. I need you to fucking go. Because of all of that, because of everything that she'd been doing, no matter what, one thing got better, three things got worse. I couldn't deal with it. So then she fakes her third blackout. It's the third time she's faked it. Every time I've hit her with something that she can't come back from, she makes a blackout. This time she really committed to it, though. Like, there is something wrong in someone's head when you can voluntarily make yourself piss your own pants to make a point to try to sell a fake blackout. Now, before you say that she could be telling the truth, it could be real, she never went limp. I've had medical training and spent a lot of time around people who've had seizures, blackouts, many different, across the broad spectrum, many different things that have happened. I've got a lot of medical training and diagnosis training. So I can tell and see the symptoms when someone is doing something illegitimately. Plus, she was a hypochondriac. Everything and anything. I made things up, and she apparently had them. Did that just to test things. Do that with a hypochondriac. Watch how fast they fucking have something. Just make it sound real and convincing. Water trickling sound, just like that last time with the water bottle when she poured the water out and had it trickling out. I heard the water trickling. I was like, are you fucking pissing yourself? Are you serious? Are you really Get the fuck up. I'm not falling for it and I'm not doing it. Huh? Really? Really? Because the second I say that, your eyes pop the fuck open when you realize that shit didn't work. So you try to make it seem like you just suddenly woke back up real quick. So, yeah, I was rough and I was an asshole about it, but I snapped. I grabbed all of her things and I threw it into the van. I grabbed the important things out of the van that were mine, and that was it. She wanted to take time to sort out the movies because I had a huge collection of over 1,200 DVDs in a army surplus chest. And I had a cat that I rescued. Everybody was trying to rescue him, but he came to me outside. He attached himself to me, and he was my Max. That was my Max. That was my cat. He was mine. But I was so goddamn crazy at this point that I didn't care. I told her to fucking take everything. I didn't want anything. Take it all. Take it all. I don't want it. Just go. I don't want it. Have it. Bye. Go. I couldn't. I gave her, she begged me to let her drop me off to work. So I finally conceded, which I shouldn't have. Should have just made her drive. But I didn't want her to go there first. So I went, got dropped off, and I literally damn near had to push the van away to get her to leave. Because something about people like this, they end up becoming obsessive. That control, like the amount of effort and time and energy they invested into grooming you, to letting you, to you letting them, the amount of time they spent to grooming you, to getting them to control you, was a lot of, follow me on that. That amount of time and effort invested, they don't want to let go of. So they're holding on to that for dear fucking life. So much so that they will feign suicide, attempt suicide. You know, that's usually always their first go-to move. That's usually when you know you're dealing with someone like this. But so you'd think I was finally free, right? No. Nope. Because I had just spent the last 5 years. Now me, because she had tried other jobs while I was doing this. She had just occasionally helped me and then finally conceded and realized that my business was working and actually doing better than the job that she could get. So I built this business, word of mouth, for 5 years. Well, 4 at this point. To build up a client base of over 30 people that I could call any one of them at any point in time and be like, hey, you got anything you need done? You need anything done in the yard? You need anything done on the farm? You guys going on a vacation anytime soon? Need someone to watch the house or work on the farm? I did everything. So they always had projects or whatever. I couldn't get halfway down the list before I had a full week's worth of work. So I had a reliable name, a reliable reputation. I had a good work ethic. Even when she would slow me down or hamper things, I would always make up for it and cut my time and show them that, I cared about their value, the value of the work versus, what they were expecting. So I painstakingly built this business. And I had work lined up for the next month. Even had a couple of things scheduled out, like 2 months out, that were planned vacations for someone. They needed me to stay there for a week to take care of their animals and their farm and their house and everything else. It's a great job. I love it. It takes me like an hour throughout the day to do the stuff that they need done. And when I come back, because I stay there, I take care of it. I can still work my other job. So it's passively a $300 extra a week that I can just get. So it was a great format that I had the business laid out in. But she was so spiteful because of this. She went and contacted all of my clients, as many as she could. I had some that were truly loyal to me that didn't like her. But there was a couple of choice clients that she reached out to take responsibility for the jobs. So they contacted me and said that they didn't need my services anymore because they had a family member, they found someone, things changed. Then I started doing some investigation through Facebook and I realized that she was taking all my clients, but The thing was, what they didn't realize, I was the worker. I was the one doing the work. Within a couple of weeks, she left state because she couldn't deal with it anymore. So she had to come back to people who would take care of her. So she ruined my business and then left. Well, she didn't ruin it. She heavily damaged it, but I was able to fix it in the long run. But still, I lost like 3 or 4 clients because of her running her mouth, saying shit that wasn't true, and then taking my clients. And then they didn't want to take me back after she left and prove that she couldn't actually do the work. So, anyway. And I miss my cat. Fucking huge Maine Coon. But anyway, there is that it's actually really nice to be able to get through an entire story, not being interrupted, and getting the entirety out. That's actually my full story about, well, I'd say about 75%. There's like some details and stuff, but like the bulk of it, the experiences and the takeaway, that's the relationship with my ex and why I have no teeth. Now, with any abusive relationship like this, there's always a lasting effect besides the physical. You know, what, 7 years later? No, 4 years later. Wow, I was off. 4 years later, I still haven't gotten my teeth fixed. Or a few other things that need to be fixed from all that. But there's a lasting effect. Something close to PTSD. Definitely for sure. Because there's a conditioning that happens. The conditioning she put me through, the manipulation and the control, that has a lasting conditioning effect. Like that becomes your normal. And it can ruin relationships if you don't take the time to fix it. Which unfortunately, it did. I got into a relationship and I didn't wait long enough. Like I said, I'm gonna stay factual here. I'm gonna drop the nitty gritty. I didn't wait long enough. I started a relationship the wrong way. I got her to cheat on her girlfriend. She was bisexual, but she was in a lesbian relationship. I got her to cheat on her girlfriend with me, and then they ended up breaking up, and then she got with me. But I didn't take time to heal. I didn't take time to process, to realize that who she was, who Becca was, that's not who women are. That's not who the next one is going to be. That's not what it is. And to take time to appreciate my value and to learn new habits, things like that. So whenever we would argue, like, it didn't start Like, it was good at first, but like I had certain expectations for what to expect. I expected certain reactions, so it was hard to deal with her. And when she would react certain ways that were similar to what Becca would do, I would expect the fallout that came behind that. But she just had a normal reaction to it, and so it was just normal. But because I was so used to such an overly jealous relationship, and my next one wasn't, I felt like something was wrong. So I felt like something was being hidden because I was expecting jealousy. But if she's not being jealous, does that mean she's hiding? Well, so that's the way my mind started working, because that's what I expected. It's what I grew accustomed to. So my mind couldn't make sense of it. So I started getting jealous, and I started getting paranoid. And when it came down to when we would argue, I had an aggressive response because I was expecting to get attacked. So I got defensive, aggressive, and I did some things I shouldn't have. I pushed her away from me. I pinned her down because I was expecting her to hit me. It was almost like flashbacks. And I'm not making an excuse. I shouldn't have done it. We moved past it. We after we broke up, we became friends. We don't talk much or at all, but we're civil. And I apologized to her and I explained to her things, and things are fine. But it's that's the fallout from that kind of relationship. Being conditioned and being beaten and put down and dragged through the mud and put into survival mode. So when things don't make sense, you start grasping and trying to figure things out and leaping to dumb conclusions and assumptions. And the worst part about it is that relationship ended exactly as it started, and was exactly what I was afraid of. And she cheated on me with someone who shook my hand the day before and after, like a POS. But anyway, it's that the potential for that relationship was ruined before it started, because it was the fallout from me not taking the time to heal from that kind of damage. So moving forward, I made myself a promise. If anybody hurt me, if anybody made me sick, if anybody just treated me anything like that, I wasn't going to deal with it anymore. I wasn't going to do it. Sometimes we break promises to ourselves, but we work to be better and to expect better and to get more respect. And it's not something that's just given. It's something that you do have to lay out what respect you expect, but you have to give it in kind to be able to get it. So moving forward, it's always about healing and trying to remember that those people are exceptions. They're not the rule. So going forward, it's like, just like, all the statistics out there. the men who are abusers in relationships, the men who are predators, the men who are deadbeat dads, the men who are assholes. Yeah, those numbers are loud, but they don't stand for the majority of men. Just like the non-existent numbers for women who are actual abusers, because 90% of the cases don't get reported because men are ashamed, they're fearful, they don't want to admit that they were treated like that they let themselves be treated like that they were that weak. So those women who do that, who are narcissistic, manipulative, controlling, jealous, abusive, they are not the rule, they're the exception. I just always seem to happen to find a lot of them. I realized a lot of my exes were of the same psyche profile. But and that's something you got to register and realize. You got to look at the personalities, not just like the people, because the demographics can change. Like a country boy and a city boy can be two totally different people, but their personalities can be similar. Their personality profiles can be very similar. But you wouldn't realize unless you took a step back and analyzed it. So that's something you got to do, is really start to kind of analyze people and figure out who they really are before you get yourself into a situation like that. And self promises are good, because even if you fall out from keeping your own self promises, you can always continue, you can always restart and get back to those promises. Every day is a new day to do better. But I was inspired to share this, and hour and a half roll call, see who's still hanging out. It says 0 on here, but it doesn't update much. My signal is really crappy. I don't know. And I don't know if anybody has talked since what is gold coin test from Laura Jones. But hearing Johnny Depp's testimony and the court proceedings and the way people are responding to it, it really it inspired me to share my story. I'm not some big profile person, but this happens to a lot of people. A lot of people don't even realize it. The number of responses, the responses that I've gotten when I've told people that my ex was abusive or that she broke my teeth. Well, what did you do? Like you must have done something to deserve that. Oh, I can't believe a woman would do that. How could a woman hurt you? Well, you should have just left. But if I was a woman sitting in front of them and I looked at them and I was like, yeah, my boyfriend was really abusive. I have to go and have oral surgery because he headbutted me and knocked out all of my teeth over the course of 3 years. It would have been, oh my God, that's terrible. I can't believe someone would do that. I'm so sorry. Someone would start a fundraiser for her and her teeth would be paid for. I'm not sour at women. I'm going to say that right now. I am sour at the inequality there, the double standard that And it's not something anybody can refute, because dead ass facts, that is 100% shit people have said to me when I've talked about it. And I know I'm going to get it in comments, because I already have. When I've mentioned this in one before, I alluded to part of it, and I got comments about how I should have just left. Could have just left. Shouldn't have stayed. So, I'm going to drop a code word real quick for my replay champions, for those who are actually going to watch this to the end. Code word Sparrow. 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 For Jack Sparrow. Put that in the comments down below to let me know that you watched it on the full replay. And that's for those on the replay. Sparrow down in the comments. But and I'll be making merch for my replay champions soon. I'm trying to figure out a plan for them. But yeah, I hope all this came out clearly. I hope everybody. I don't know if anybody is still hanging out or around. I got a little emotional there in the middle, but I held it together. So thank you for letting me share. Not that anybody had a choice, but for those that stuck around and listened and were a part of it, I appreciate you. Like I said, my signal was a little messed up. I don't know if I've missed anybody on chat. If I did, sorry. And unfortunately, I feel like there's going to be a big drop off right in the beginning of this video because of that freeze. I wonder if I can go in and clip this and cut that off and fix that. I don't know. But all right, doesn't seem like anybody's hanging out. So thank you, everybody. All right, till next time, get out there, be a native, and go beast.